As California faces worsening climate disasters, Silicon Valley Democrats are pushing a bill that could give control of the state's energy markets to the Trump administration.
We should not ever give away California's authority to protect our consumers, to protect public health, and to protect our environment. And this bill does all three things.
And as 7 on Your Side investigates, questions are being raised about a money trail following the Bay Area politician behind this bill. And Stephanie Sierra is here with new developments on this story. Steph?
Yeah, Dan and Kristen, this has been an ongoing fight. We're looking into concerns about a potential conflict of interest as the supporters and opponents of this bill have very different definitions on how it would help or hurt Californians. But as we follow the money, we found the Bay Area senator behind it is getting a sizable check from the industries that would directly benefit from it.
There's a clash of interests.
A battle is brewing between big tech, labor unions, and California's green energy laws.
We get a big, beautiful bill.
A bill moving through the state legislature is raising eyebrows at the state capitol, not just because of its potential economic and environmental impacts facing consumers, but a six-figure consulting contract benefiting the Silicon Valley Democrat behind it. Critics argue it's a potential conflict of interest. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, here's the controversy.
A bad direction that the bill's taken.
This proposal promises too much.
Help us generate more clean power.
How do we use our grid more efficiently?
State Senator Josh Becker is the chair of the Senate Energy Committee, who describes himself as a longtime advocate for clean energy solutions. So his fellow environmentalists ask, why is someone like him authoring a bill that would allow California to give control of its state-run energy markets to an independent federal agency under the Trump administration?
We will be handing Trump the stick to beat California up whenever they want.
An independent analysis from the Senate Judiciary Committee found the bill would bring devastating impacts to California's fight for clean energy. Yet after repeated attempts to reach him, Becker has been conveniently unavailable to talk about his own bill. The question we had for Senator Becker is why. He promises to be transparent, but couldn't answer any questions about this bill he describes as a huge priority. In fact, he canceled our interview that was scheduled a week in advance due to a, quote, unforeseen scheduling change. So we asked if we could have 5 to 10 minutes with him sometime over the next several weeks, but never got a straight answer. We did get a hold of Senator Henry Stern, a joint author of the bill and former environmental attorney. He represents the northern suburbs of L.A. Senator, do you consider yourself an environmentalist?
Yes.
So tell us why you're backing this bill.
I'm hopeful that it'll prove itself out that renewables are the lowest cost, and so everyone's emissions will go down, but who knows?
Stern and Becker argue this bill will bring down consumer costs by allowing the state to export excess renewable energy and import cheaper energy from a wider set of Western resources. They cite studies that found the energy system would be less stressed, potentially leading to fewer blackouts, and suggest gas generation could drop while solar and wind sources increase. But that independent legislative analysis contradicts that, arguing this bill could actually increase greenhouse gas emissions across the West, jeopardize California's clean energy laws, and even curtail the state's fight against climate change. What's your response to this report?
I get the anxiety. We get the distrust right now for anything to do with the federal government. One of the hard parts about this whole bill is that it's a bit of a trust exercise.
A trust exercise on a plan that opponents argue simply isn't working. Well, critics say these regional markets operating elsewhere in the country haven't worked in all or parts of 13 different states. In fact, several governors have withdrawn support from it. Why do you think this will work here if it's not working there?
We designed ours a little differently, so it's not our entire grid isn't going to be integrated. This is probably less than 5% of power for the year. We've really limited what it can be used for.
No.
Loretta Lynch says that's not true. She's the former president of the California Public Utilities Commission, who served during the Enron energy crisis. Lynch worries this bill would reverse all the protections implemented since the historic scandal.
And we would hand over our authority that we have now to the Trump administration or to any federal government in the future. They will be flying our plane and we'll be in the back seat going wherever they take us.
Once we're in, it may be very difficult to leave.
Fear of limited control, high costs, and the potential loss of tens of thousands of labor jobs are all reasons opponents are against this bill.
Doesn't it give you pause knowing that these efforts in other states have cost ratepayers even more money?
Yes, no, we don't. I mean, we certainly don't want to pay for other people's costs. We think this will save costs.
Stern says the bill has protections in the event consumer rates go up, but control over that remains unclear.
And you're sure you would have the authority, California, in this sense, to pull the plug under the Trump administration?
Great question. No, it's the right question. You can never be 100% sure.
It just seems like there's a lot of ifs and no certainty with this.
Totally. This is not like a sure thing that it's going to work.
And if it doesn't work, Lynch says other states that have tried to get out of these regional markets were punished with high costs.
They will control whether you leave.
We should be able to review the facts once we have more concrete evidence.
So critics ask, why push this bill if there's all this uncertainty? Well, we followed the money.
Big tech is in support of your bill. Why?
Yeah, I've heard his big tech line. I didn't know so much about. They haven't been such a vocal supporter for me. I mean,
that's interesting, given the letter listing all the bill's supporters has companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon plastered on the front. But it's also well known in Silicon Valley, big tech supports the bill, given the rising demand for artificial intelligence data centers.
I don't know. I don't know exactly why.
A 7 on Your Side analysis of state finance records shows Becker has up to $3.4 million invested in various tech and AI companies. And he currently has a consulting contract for an AI company that pays him more than $100,000 a year, although he was unable to specify exactly how much. Plus stock options worth up to $1 million.
When you're in government full-time, then you should spend full-time working for the people and not working a side gig.
According to our analysis of financial records, Becker has received at least 85 from industry groups and tech companies that support this bill. That's 21 times more than what he received from opponents of the bill. Meanwhile, Stern got roughly 20% of what Becker received from industry supporters, with no contributions from those opposing it.
I hate all the corporate money, period, so I don't have good things to say about it.
Now, Senator Becker was unable to give us a copy of his contract with this AI consulting company, nor share how many hours he spends working in that position. Meanwhile, the bill passed its first floor vote and is now headed to the Assembly. We'll, of course, be following it.
Yeah.
I think this is something some politicians do, Steph, but would Senator Becker consider putting his stock into a blind trust?
You know, we asked him and his answer was no. In fact, according to this email, he said, "I have never had a conflict and will never need to claim ignorance." But this is pretty common with other politicians, including the governor, who has done that, just out of an abundance of caution.
Right. And perception,
Right.
optics.